I never thought that hitting a panic button could spark total mayhem across the entire neighborhood and end with criminal charges filed against our HOA president. Yet that's precisely what unfolded the day Karen Whitfield chose to force her way into my house with a counterfeit master key. I was hundreds of miles away, handling conference calls with international clients, while my 12-year-old son, Leo, remained composed indoors, observing everything as it happened. What Karen failed to realize was that her every action was captured on video, and those recordings would ultimately bring about her downfall. My name is Marcus Chen, a single father and software engineer who believes relocating to Willowbrook Estates would provide tranquility, security, and a new beginning. 3 months earlier, Leo and I had left our modest apartment behind and settled into this guarded community, featuring charming houses, neatly manicured lawns, and what I foolishly took to be a standard HOA. In reality, we had entered a domain controlled by Karen Whitfield, a woman who mistook her unpaid position for unlimited authority. Karen made her presence known just hours after our arrival. She appeared at our door holding a clipboard and casting a critical eye over our unpacked boxes, issuing subtle threats disguised as reminders about upholding community standards. Initially, I dismissed it as ordinary neighborhood dynamics, but everything shifted the instant she noticed Leo returning home by himself from the bus stop. One afternoon, while I was bringing in groceries, Karen strode up our driveway and, in her signature voice of fake worry, declared, "Single dads frequently have trouble keeping proper watch over their kids. Perhaps you ought to look into after-school programs." I responded courteously, pointing out that Leo was 12, quite responsible for his age, and that I worked from home, keeping tabs on him via our advanced smart security setup. She flashed a grin that was all teeth and no warmth before turning away. Yet I sensed it clearly. This was far from over. A few days passed, and she returned, insisting that HOA regulations prohibited leaving children under 16 unsupervised at home. I requested the specific rule in writing. She claimed it was being updated. No such document ever materialized. Instead, what escalated was Karen's constant monitoring. Each weekday around 3:45 p.m., her silver SUV would materialize. At times, she'd cruise slowly by our property. On other occasions, she'd station herself across the road. Leo, understandably unnerved, once wondered aloud if she planned to abduct him. We began documenting everything: timestamps, photographs, even clips from the doorbell camera. Still, nothing could have prepared us for that Tuesday in October. I was deep into an important virtual meeting with clients in Japan when notifications began bombarding my phone. Front door motion detected. Unsuccessful. Key entry detected. Then Karen's voice echoed through the security intercom, ordering Leo to let her in right away. Shock quickly turned to alarm. Using the security app, I saw her on live feed, forcefully inserting a key into our lock. She yelled that she was performing a welfare check in her capacity as HOA president. Leo kept his cool despite Karen pounding on the door. He engaged our emergency lockdown mode, a system I'd added after we moved, in which secured every entrance and exit while activating comprehensive video recording. Then he phoned me, "Dad, that Karen woman is trying to break in. She says she has a key, but it's not working." "You handled it perfectly," I replied, my pulse racing. "Don't move. I'll deal with this." Over the intercom, I warned Karen that she was committing trespass and needed to leave at once. That's when she committed her gravest error. She dialed 911 herself, reporting a neglected child inside who was at risk. The dispatcher informed me of this when I contacted them. To set the record straight, officers were already en route. I hung up, abandoned the meeting, and sped home. The 15-minute journey seemed eternal. By the time I pulled up, 2 patrol cars were parked out front. Officer Martinez and Officer Thompson were on the porch, standing with folded arms, while Karen paced wildly, brandishing her phone and railing about irresponsible parenthood. Leo communicated with the officers via the Ring camera, assuring them he was okay, working on assignments, and refused to open up for an unknown person. Karen jabbed a finger in my direction as I exited the car. "There he is, the father. He left his kid all alone. Officer Martinez remained stoic. "Sir," he said evenly, "would you like to explain your version?" "Absolutely," I answered, using my real key to open the door. Karen's fake master key hung limp in her grip. I invited the officers inside. Leo sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by his notebook, pencil, and open textbook. He even gave them a friendly wave. The officers made sure to verify that he was okay, checking for food in the fridge, water available, and easy access to phones and communication. Then I pulled up the full security footage on my tablet. They watched silently as Karen marched up to the door, repeatedly jammed a key into the lock, failed each time, and finally dialed 911 while insisting there was a dire emergency. Her expression on camera was pure rage, not a trace of genuine worry. When Officer Thompson directly asked her about the origin of that key, Karen's story crumbled almost immediately. "It came from a routine maintenance call months back for real emergencies," she muttered, stumbling over her words. "So you made a copy of a resident's key without their consent?" he pressed. She hesitated, eyes darting. "That's standard HOA procedure. Produce the policy, then," Officer Martinez demanded. She had nothing to show. That's when I handed over the detailed folder I'd put together. A log of every date and time of Karen's drive-by surveillance. Screenshots of her emails nitpicking non-existent violations. And even statements from other neighbors. Mrs. Rodriguez from across the street had provided her own video of Karen parked in her SUV for more than 20 minutes, just staring at our house. The officers shifted their questions to Karen. Now, her earlier bravado started to crack. Terms like false police report, attempted unlawful entry, and criminal trespassing began floating around the porch. Her face drained of color. By this point, neighbors were drifting over, some casually retrieving mail from their boxes, others suddenly deciding it was time to water perfectly hydrated lawns, all while sneaking glances at the scene. Smartphones were already recording. I knew the neighborhood Facebook group would explode with updates before dinner. When the officers asked one final time for any written HOA rule granting her entry into private residences, Karen weakly claimed the paperwork was back at her place. Officer Thompson shook his head, clearly unimpressed. "No homeowners association covenant supersedes state laws on private property," he stated firmly. "Ma'am, you're receiving citations for attempted unlawful entry and making a false emergency report," Karen protested loudly. "You can't do this. I'm the president." "That doesn't matter," Officer Martinez replied, without looking up from his citation book as he finished writing. I informed the officers that I intended to press full charges. When I added that my lawyer would be reaching out for their statements, Karen seemed to deflate right there on the spot. The following HOA meeting was standing room only, more crowded than anyone could remember. I attended with Jacob Morrison, my attorney, who focuses exclusively on HOA disputes. He laid out the evidence to the board methodically and without raising his voice. Karen sat rigidly at the front of the room, flanked by board members who suddenly had very little to say. Jacob highlighted not just the illegal key duplication, but the distress it caused Leo and the unnecessary drain on police time and resources. He formally demanded a complete audit of all community keys. Tom Bradley, the treasurer, quietly admitted that Karen had never obtained board authorization for any kind of master key system. Sarah Kim, the secretary, pulled up old meeting minutes showing that Karen's earlier proposal for unrestricted home access had been voted down. The no confidence motion passed without a single dissenting vote, even her closest allies flipped. When the outcome was read aloud, Karen shot to her feet. "You'll all be sorry," she hissed. "Without me running things, this whole place will collapse." She stormed out of the room to dead silence. It didn't end with her removal. Karen was ordered to pay a $5,000 fine for the false report. The unauthorized key copying resulted in misdemeanor criminal charges. Her real estate license was suspended while an investigation proceeded. We pursued a civil suit for ongoing harassment and emotional distress and prevailed. The court awarded us $15,000 in damages, permanently barred her from ever serving in any HOA leadership role, and issued a restraining order, keeping her at least 100 feet away from our property. I'll always remember the day of her sentencing. She stood before the judge, no longer projecting that polished air of authority, her public image completely shattered. The judge recited each charge in turn. When the bailiff outlined the conditions of her probation, Karen finally broke, tears streaming down her face. The woman who had once tried to control an entire community through intimidation and invented rules was reduced to an ordinary defendant, a living warning to others. And it all began because my 12-year-old son stayed calm enough to press the panic button. If you agree that no one, not even an HOA president, should ever have a master key to your private home, smash that like button. And if you're here for more stories about overreaching entitlement finally getting brought down, be sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next.